does hereby rise and report for the in-camera session of the regular council meeting with staff being given direction at, that's 9:35?
Close enough. Yeah. And we're gonna be able to take these with us?
Yeah, bring them back on. And moving on under agenda, we have the minutes from our October 13th council meeting.
Your worship, there's just one, correct, your worship, we can do that now, sorry. I'll just get my orders mixed up with all this.
I have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Seconded by, thank you, Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maricville Wolford does hereby approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of October the 13th, 2020. Any errors and or omissions? None noted. We'll receive them as circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, let's sign those all together at the end. And next members we have for council's information, Public Library Board minutes, and a mover and a seconder for those minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, and a seconder would be Mr. Foster. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maricville Wolford does hereby receive the Maricville Public Library Board minutes of September the 10th, 2020 for information purposes. Members, you've got a copy of the minutes. I'm not sure if you have any questions or anything in particular, Mr. Malloy, you wanted to bring to our attention. Very straightforward. Thank you, sir. If there aren't any questions, we'll receive the minutes for information purposes. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, may I just retreat one second?
Yes, Mr. Malloy.
We still are having trouble, we being the library board, trying to get contractors to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's basically been put off until next year. And just keep the money in the budget and.
Good. Okay. Thank you. And we also have the Police Service Board minutes of December the 12th, 2019. And mover in a second. Thank you. We have the minutes of the Police Service Board meeting of December the 2nd, 2019. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster. And a seconder would be, anyone would do. Thank you, Mr. Helpney. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maricville Wolford does hereby receive the minutes of the Maricville Police Service Board dated December the 2nd, 2019 for information purposes. Are there any questions on the minutes? If not, it's for information. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Oh, question.
Yeah.
Mr.
No,
Miller. Oh, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Just a note, sorry to see Mr. Pelche leaving.
I'm sorry?
Sorry to see Mr. Pelche leaving.
Indeed, yeah, he was a great member on the board, and we're also, though, very fortunate to have as members know, a great replacement for because he was a provincial appointee,
Yeah.
and we have the former councillor and a longtime resident, Mr. Southern, is the provincial appointee, which yeah, it's great. And next is the motion regarding Committee of Adjustment vacancies, and we're going to, I think, wanted some adjustment on the wording, or do we need the adjustment on the wording in the motion if we were to go to, well, let's get it on the table as best efforts possible. So mover and a seconder for that motion would be, thank you, Mr. Halpney, seconded by Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Maricville Wolford does hereby receive report CAO-07-2020, being a report to provide an update on the current status of the Committee of Adjustment and current vacancies on the committee for information purposes. And I believe, Council, we're going to consider that third option, where that Council does hereby give favorable consideration to a bylaw to amend the village's procedural bylaw 30-17, section 2.2, to allow the mayor to be a voting member of the Committee of Adjustment and to allow for his presence at a meeting to be counted towards quorum. And do we want a subject to continuation to populate it from the public? or are we comfortable leaving the wording as is, knowing that at such time we are able to have the committee populated from the public, that we would go back to the mayor not being a voting member? In other words, the way the procedural
Yeah.
bylaw is at the moment.
Okay, so,
Mr. Foster?
yeah, so as Councillor Cameron had mentioned before, the idea would be that the mayor would help populate that committee.
Yep.
It would take the rest of this year perhaps to try and fill those seats. And in the event that we could not, that committee would be folded into council.
We would have that public discussion and do it that way. So we could put it, simply put, in terms of an amendment to the motion, the last part, to allow for his presence at a meeting to be counted towards quorum, and review December at the end of this calendar year.
Yeah, our first meeting in January 2021. The reason I'm saying that is our last meeting is December 14th.
Yeah.
So the first meeting in January might be the best.
Yeah. Mr. Cameron?
Just want a clarification on that, Councillor Foster. I wasn't the one that recommended to do that, to have the wording changed in option 3. I was leaning towards option 2.
Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt, just, this is the public part, so we have to be
Yeah,
cognizant of what may have been discussed in camera.
yeah, I'm not discussing anything, I'm just saying that.
No, I'm saying we
just a
need to be
clarification.
cognizant of it.
It was just a clarification, I didn't state that. I stated that option 2 is where I was leaning towards. Just needed a little clarification.
Yeah, gotcha.
Thanks.
So what wording would members like to amend the motion to reflect that?
Go ahead.
I'll turn to our deputy clerk.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship.
No pressure.
I was just going to mention, we have prepared a bylaw tonight in the event, in 2 scenarios, one for option 2, one for option 3. And I might suggest that perhaps the best way about going about it would be amending the wording in the bylaw, that it would take force and come into effect this evening, and it would automatically expire or be repealed on such and such a date as council sees fit.
There's a lot of soap time going on here. Mr. Malloy?
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that direction, except what happens if we don't get anybody from the public to join that committee? And so how does that get worded in the bylaw?
Perhaps you're right, because that would give options to, continue, or to look at repealing the committee and having council sitting as the committee. So would it be as simple as adding to be reviewed at the first regular meeting of council in 2021?
Sure.
That covers, so we'd have that discussion at that point. If it hasn't been populated, we'll have a discussion, okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could I allow the clerk to use her handwriting to do the amendment to that motion, please?
Your Worship, if I may?
Yes.
So just a word of caution that we need to allow a little bit of lead time, that if it's going to be reviewed, for us to get it back on the agenda. And then, just trying to think through the process here, I'm a little foggy, it's late in the evening, but you need to make sure you line up the dates. So if the date that the bylaw expires, the change in the bylaw expires, if you will, happens at the same time, there won't be any lead time for council to make any decisions or have further discussion about it. So if council's comfortable with that, that's okay, but it may be appropriate to have staff bring it back on a certain date, but then have the bylaw or say that the bylaw expires on a certain date, but that staff will bring it back to council for reconsideration prior to that. If you understand what I mean. You don't want to have a non-functioning committee. We don't want to fall back into it if staff don't bring it back to council for reconsideration prior to the date that the bylaw expires. Does that make sense? Maybe the deputy clerk has any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you. And through your worship, I would just note that the bylaw itself would need to be reworded.
Right.
And this is just the motion giving favorable consideration.
Correct. So I just, when we get to the bylaw, your worship, just needs to be
Okay.
aligned with the resolution. But we'll work on it and give you, we'll suggest the final wording for your worship before council approves it.
So this evening, we were considering a motion. Do we actually need to pass the bylaw this evening?
You do, your worship, because it's an amendment to the procedure bylaw.
Okay.
So the bylaw, so you're actually, just to be clear, you're amending the procedure bylaw and inserting a date when that amending bylaw expires. So as long as council has us bring the issue back for reconsideration prior to that date, then you're safe. You won't have a committee that has become defunct. Is it me or?
No, I think I know what you mean. So in this particular instance, staff would bring it back to us at the first meeting in January to be voted on at a subsequent meeting or at that meeting, but the committee would not be dissolved or changed over until the first meeting in February or something.
That's the
like that.
nature of what I'm
So
suggesting.
but the CAO is afraid of is that we'll just not have a committee. The committee will have expired.
And we won't have done anything to replace it.
And yeah, and nothing will be done to
Correct.
replace it. But I suppose when it expires, it could automatically default to council.
Right. So,
That would require another bylaw.
yeah, would, your worship. It's bureaucracy, what can I tell you? But so thanks to Christina. So the proposed amended wording here, actually perhaps, your worship,
Well, I
would be
think
appropriate for you
just
to.
have a look at it to
Oh,
make
you want
sure
me to look at it?
from a staff perspective, that makes sense. I'll put it on the floor for council members to consider it.
Great, so correct, as long as, I think what Christina has in mind is that this would, we bring it back to the first meeting in January 2021. The amending bylaw, we would choose a later date, am I correct, Christina? Or would you actually put a date in the amending bylaw?
Sorry.
May I see the
Sure,
motion?
sure, Your Worship.
Thank you. So what the motion is, the council does hereby give favorable consideration to a bylaw to amend the village's procedural bylaw 30-17, section 2.2, to allow the mayor to be a voting member of the Committee of Adjustment and to allow for his presence at the meeting to be counted as quorum, subject to staff bringing this issue back to council for reconsideration at the first meeting of January 2021. So I think council members are going to vote in favor of this. I'm not sure, from the chair's perspective, I'm not sure what the issue is in terms of, so we amend the bylaw moving forward, it'll be as is, the mayor will be a sitting and voting member. Period, full stop, the bylaw will be amended to allow that.
Correct.
It's in January. If it has not been populated by the public, we'll have to change the bylaw then, we know, to for the mayor not to be the voting member, or take a different direction.
Correct, Your Worship. So I just wanted to make council aware, if that different direction is, for example, to go out and initiate another call for members or something like that, there would be a lag time. And in that lag time, you would have a committee that was not functioning. So I was just going to suggest that.
Well, just if I might interject,
No, certainly, Your Worship.
all we're saying in January, we're going to reconsider. It doesn't mean we're going to stop the mayor from being a city member. So the committee will still be functioning unless council takes firm direction at that time.
Well, if you amend the bylaw to reflect the same date in the resolution, Your Worship, like, in other words, the same date that we bring it back to council for reconsideration, if the bylaw expires on that date, then council has no choice but to act on the date. It could eliminate the option of going back out for another call. That was all I wanted to make council aware of.
Okay, maybe we're getting hung up on a mindset is we're going to reconsider what we want to do as opposed to having a reconsideration
Of the committee.
on the bylaw. We're not, in other words, it's going to be having a conversation. Maybe we're being overly technical on the words. I appreciate staff being extremely mindful that, it's important to get the wording right when it comes to bylaws in terms of direction. I think members of council would be wise to yield to staff's expertise. They're the experts, so they're going to get the correct wording in the bylaw. It's fine for the motion on, the wording on the motion to proceed. I'm looking for staff to nod yes. Thank you. So we'll deal with the bylaw in a moment. Any other new comments on the motion? None noted. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Is there a motion to go with the bylaw? I will ask staff.
That was the resolution you just signed now, Your Worship, that you just...
So that is attached with the motion.
Or,
And
or
the
am I
wording
wrong?
it accompanies the motion.
Just one of the white ones. Just have to use the white one.
Thank you. This is the motion regarding the procedural bylaw. Move to a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Mr. Malloy. And a seconder would be Mr. Foster. Thank you. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 57-2020 being a bylaw to amend section 2.2 of bylaw 30-17, the village's procedure bylaw, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 57-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. And the adjustment on that is on the second page.
So that, Your Worship, so we're not entering a date in the bylaw.
Not entering a date in the bylaw, because you did have by hand a date in there, and so that's being removed. Okay.
Can we hear it? Just a section's been changed. The last page.
What was in this bylaw shall be rescinded on February the 1st, 2020, so that has been removed. So it'll be this bylaw will be consolidated with bylaw 30-17, and this bylaw shall come into full force and effective upon the date of its passing, which is today's date, October 26th. Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? This is for the bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. I'll keep them all together, too, the bylaws together. This is a confirmatory bylaw. Before I go to that, Mr. Malloy, you had a question?
No, I'm just not sure how much is left, but we are moving on to 10 o'clock. And if we want to move up past 10 o'clock, we're going to have to...
Yeah, although just a clarification on that, I always thought not curfew, what's the word I'm looking for? Curfew is 3 hours, but is it might be 4 hours. Nonetheless, it'd be interesting to get, don't need that this evening, we have not gone past the 3 hour mark anyway, so.
Well, I'm just making it, drawing attention.
This is our confirmatory bylaw. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Mr. Foster, and seconded by Mr. Halpney. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 56-2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting of October the 26th, 2020, be read a first and second time, and the bylaw 56-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. All in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Oops, good luck there. And the motion to adjourn, mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Mr. Helpney, and thank you, Mr. Foster. That movers and seconder. Be it hereby resolved that this regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Village of American Wolford does now adjourn at 9:55 p.m. until the next regular meeting of Council on Monday, November the 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or until the call of the mayor is subject to need. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Home, everybody.